One of the things that I keep hearing from all the books that I'm reading and all these events that I keep going to is how important relationships are. And it's one of the things that I had a realization recently is that without any relationships, it's very difficult to accomplish things. And so I just wanted to talk to you, Brett, about our experiences working with other people and developing relationships and how important all those things are.
Yeah, it's a great time to talk about it too, Thomas. Here, while recording this, it's actually the beginning of 2023 and a great break from us, both of us just getting back from reflection retreats. And I want to thank you for, continuing to push me in growth personally. And I just comes down to the great relationship that we're building and the partnership that we're building and continuing to make each other better. And I wouldn't even have been on that without that continued, not poke, but kind of persistent, hey, you got to do this. Get out there, do this. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know Jim Rohn has one of my favorite quotes from him is he says, I used to say, I'll take care of you if you take care of me. But instead now what he says is I'll take care of me for you if you take care of you for me, which means I'll improve myself and increase my own value. And that way I'll be able to help other people and help you more in relationships. And I think that's so true. It always comes back to working on yourself and improving yourself so that you can then bring value to the other people in your relationships and your life and your business, etc.
Yeah. Right now, I'm kind of like in a turning point, and so many things are going through my mind that I want to talk about. But first, I want to, for everyone listening to this, it's like, okay, partnership is important, but what if I'm just going to go out there and do this myself? Well, I think there's still massive implications on the things that we're going to talk about with regards to real estate, with regards to time. Ultimately, relationships are everything, and finding that partnership is going to what Grant Cardone says to multiply, not add, right? When we add another person to our network, the relationship or the partnership of it can then increase exponentially your output. So I think that's really important. And in real estate, for me, I started my first real estate company with my wife, and that was a partnership through God we call marriage. that means a lot to us and will never change. But that was also a blessing in and of itself, because that partnership we went in, there's never going to be an end to that partnership. So there was no other outcome except for success. But through my journey in real estate, we've partnered with other people in what we call joint ventures, especially in the wholesale world, where we would partner with people maybe who brought us the deal and we would do the flip, or we could bring the deal, other people would do the flip. So there's lots of things that will happen. And I think the opportunity really lies in the partnership, especially when you are time constrained. And for physicians, that's exactly why we're talking about this, because you are trained, you're highly trained to trade time for money. Your skill specifically is a skill set that requires your attention, your hands in most cases. And what we're talking about is the ability to then find this path in real estate to move away from that and build that avenue towards passive income. One of the fastest ways, Thomas, would you agree, is finding the right person or group to partner with?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's one of the things with relationships. Once you form them and you start getting equity in that relationship and you get to know the person, you trust the person over time, then you can start doing things much, much faster because you know that person's always going to do what they say they're going to do. And you trust them to do the right thing. So you don't have to worry about now whatever you're delegating or whatever they're doing or providing a service for you because you've built that relationship. So yeah, 100% agree with that.
That's awesome. And that was really a key for us on our the first real estate investment company we built, and that was Connect Home Buyers. And symbolically, even the image of that company with the interconnecting ends in the middle of it was all about connecting. And the mission of that company was building relationships and creating opportunities on a pathway to financial freedom. And again, you keep putting the emphasis on this, Thomas. I think it's great too. The equity in relationships. It's putting that together. But man, there are so many wrong people out there. There are so many right people. It's easy to find the wrong people, and oftentimes it's hard to find the right people. And it's so hard to even be the right person when you find the right person, right? And we started off by saying, I'm going to work on me for you. So
Yeah.
what are some things that we could talk about that say, man, where do we even start when we're talking about a partnership?
Yeah.
And then how can I be a good partner? What if we looked at it that way and we focused on ourselves? Right now in our journey, I'm feeling like the more I learn, the more I can share. And I feel like right now I'm focused on so much of self-improvement. Once I fix me, then I can be in a relationship. Once I fix me, then I can have a great partnership. Once I fix me, then I can see other things that may need some attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely does. And also, I like Charlie Munger's approach to solving problems or thinking backwards. What he'll do typically is he'll ask the question instead of saying, what am I looking for in a partner? He may say instead, what am I not looking for in a partner? And then he'll make a list of everything that he doesn't want. And then by doing that, it screens out the percentage of the 0.5% or 80% of the people who he knows that these are not the right people, and it leaves the remainder of the right partners.
So in my journey, like I said, I started with my wife, Erin, and she's still a major part of the companies that we have. But recently, you and I, Thomas, began started a company, and we are now partnerships. So now there's partners. So there's a whole new world here for me. And through my journey, I've probably told you this multiple times, I was, I guess, dumbfounded, like I hadn't crossed the paths of another person to where I knew I could multiply my output by being with the right person, being around the right people. And I just had never found that other person. I don't know, man, it felt like there were people that did come and go, but there was never any way or anybody that I felt like I could partner with. When I look back, Thomas, it's almost like the thing, the opportunity will arise when you are prepared, right? And I think that's maybe I was not prepared to be a good partner up until this point. So what would you say that you have that makes you a good potential partner in the world of business and real estate, Thomas? I think I've got you on mute. I see you on my screen. If you can hear me.
Oh, my apologies.
There you go. Yeah, I said, is the signal breaking up or something? No, you were on mute. We missed anything you said there. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. My bad. I think that for anyone, not just myself, to be a good partner, the first thing is going to be you're looking at the character of the person. And if the person doesn't have good character, you definitely don't want to involve yourself with them in any type of relationship. It's a good rule of thumb to avoid dealing with people who have questionable character. So I think that's the probably the most important thing, the starting point where you want to look at is the character. And character has a lot of dimensions to it. I think the first thing and probably the most important thing is going to be the integrity and the honesty. If someone's not honest and someone doesn't have integrity, then it's going to be very difficult to trust them. You really can't trust them because if they've done something once, a lot of people will do things more than one time. It's very rare that someone will do something one time. So I think it really starts there.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. I just heard Zig Ziglar talk about he could tell how long somebody was going to be with the company uh, by basically going out and playing golf with them. And if that
Really?
person cheats in a golf game, then they wouldn't, they're going to cheat in business or they're going to cheat
Right.
in personal matters. So if they went out and, found themselves 5 strokes short on a game, and basically winning in that regard, in the instance that he had given, that person, I had given him 3 weeks, Zig said, and come to find out, no, 3 months. He's like, I gave him 3 months because he cheated in golf. He just met Zig Ziglar, and not that he was Big Zig at that time, but playing golf with him, Zig gave him 3 months, and 3 weeks later, guess what? He's gone.
Yeah.
So it's just the character is a huge piece of it. Integrity is it. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Doing the right thing even when nobody else is looking. And Thomas, I'll put it back on, there are a lot of people out there that have great integrity that are disconnected spiritually, but I think spiritually is a huge foundation for that. And for me, that gives me the basis. Somebody is always looking. There's always a higher power that's there for me, making sure that, hey, you're not the only one here. Even though somebody else may not be looking, guess what? Somebody is always looking.
Yeah. I think spiritually, it varies for a ton of different people, especially when just recently traveling the world and seeing all the different perspectives and religions. I think even if you're not someone who believes in a certain religion or upper power or whatever it is, but spiritually you can still, I think it has to do with serving the greater good of the world and other people and not just basically doing things for your own self-interest. I think that has to do a lot with spiritual. At least that's what I think of.
Before we go down too far into the spiritual path, I think it can be summed up in no matter what or who it is that you do believe in, who may be that higher power, whether it is Christianity or Buddhism or all that, whatever it is, God is love. And exactly what you're saying, true enlightenment is living in love and doing what's best for other people.
Yeah.
The good of people in your heart.
Yeah.
So
no, I would agree.
So character is definitely a major piece of it, having character, not being a character. What else would you say is an important piece for that makes you a good partner, Thomas?
Well, I think that having a different perspective is super important. So I know you keep asking, what do I think makes me a good partner? And I think this would apply to anyone, is just no matter who it is, you're always going to have blind spots. And if you're working with someone else, that other person may be able to see your blind spots and vice versa and help you kind of see if you were going through, this is an analogy that Ray Dalio uses.
I think it's Dalio, but
Dalio.
I'm not an English major.
Author of Principles. He uses when you're going through a jungle with a flashlight and you can only see where that flashlight is aimed and all the rest is your blind spots. When you have a team with you or a partner or partners, they're able to shine the light and you can see the entirety of the jungle and all those areas of the blind spots. So I think of just having that second person who has that perspective that can open up your blind spots, and then also having complementary skills that maybe you might not have. For example, in this scenario with our partnership, I may have more knowledge and skills and experience in the digital aspect of creating websites and going in the analytics and tracking and pixels and marketing and that sort of thing. Whereas you have more experience and strengths and skills in real estate and investing and that sort of thing. So having those different skill sets, and then you can combine them together to multiply and not add, like you said earlier.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, great. I know there's a big one here that you're going to get to, but I think communication. Tell me a little bit about that, Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, communication is so important. I think that even when we were writing our book, doing some research on marriages, because in a marriage, you're in a partnership in a sense. And the number one cause, the number one cause is of marriages failing, from the research that I did, is lack of communication or a failure to be able to constantly communicate and be open about different things that are happening. So communication is by far one of the most important things. And there's always going to be times when, let's say you're getting married and you have everything figured out, you know what you guys want in the future, but things are always going to change. And so you constantly have to keep an open communication and express how you feel. And if something changes, you have to share that with your partner and let them know how you may see things differently than them, and work through it together to come to a solution together. So communication absolutely is probably, if you don't communicate, then you're really just an island to yourself, and you can't do much by yourself.
Yeah, and the communication piece, expectations, like if you're not communicating, then expectations, can't be laid out. Roles and responsibilities can't be laid out. You're stepping on everybody's toes. If you've got a team, then they don't know who to talk to. And, one week it's this way, the other week it's that way. So communication is massive. Mm-hmm. And, and not only building the team, but just in the partnership itself, if your partnership has to be a whole in order for the entire network of resources to be a whole and function well.
Yeah. And communication is one of the things that I've struggled with, and I've definitely improved over the years, and I'm still continually trying to improve in. And from what I've learned so far, half of the part of communicating is just listening to the other person and actually listening to them, and not just waiting for them to stop so that you can start talking. Because communicate, we're all guilty of that at some point.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just be listening, but in our mind, what we're doing is waiting for them to stop so that we can start talking.
Yeah.
So I think that what I've learned so far is half of it isn't just the actual part of you talking, but it's actually of you listening to what the other person is saying, and almost peering into their perspective and understanding where they're coming from.
A couple of things that makes me think of, Thomas, is the improv world and communication and sales. This idea of improv attaches to so many things, but in an active listening scenario, when you're effectively communicating with somebody, letting the conversation go where it needs to. Obviously, we've got maybe agenda or talking points, but when your partner or when the other person in the conversation is teeing up something, it's like that's you don't know they're teeing up if you're not listening. So if you're waiting and preparing yourself to plug your next little shin kick in there, then you're not actively listening. So if you treated it like the improv world in communication is like, the perfect example is you've got two chairs on stage and you're up there with this other person you have a conversation with. The person next to you sits down in the chair and looks like he's putting on a seatbelt and puts his hands on the steering wheel. Then that's teeing you up so you have the next line. Then what do you have to do? Well, you're going to work with him to prepare that scene and further it, as in what? You're in a car, right? So does that make sense where we're teeing it up and we're working with the other person as opposed to taking sticks and jabs at trying to get your point across?
Yeah. It's like playing off of what the other person says, and you almost have to be, in a sense, empty-minded or just fully engaged in the flow of the conversation, because a lot of people, I think, are always trying to control and direct it. And one of the things, if you notice that every time or frequently you have a conversation, it always ends up on topics that you're interested in or that you want to talk about, then you're probably directing or controlling the conversation a little too much. If you notice that tendency to happen.
Another piece of communication is it kind of ties into the other one that will bring value and the perspective and the skills, the comparable skills. Is that what the way that you put it?
Yeah.
Comparable skills. So verbal communication is one piece of it, but there's so much more to communication beyond verbal, and those cues and programs that our brain runs. in our relationship, you have a way of pointing those out for me, the ones that I don't see. And I can do the same for you, helping you out as well too. So we're continuing to improve our communication skills because of the partnership. So I think it's Johara's windows, a way of looking at this. There are things that people see that I don't see. Right? When we're talking, Thomas, you can see my facial expressions, and you tell me something I don't believe, you're instantly going to be able to read my face. You're like, even if my next line out is, if I can, it's just that millisecond that you can see and read my face. But those are the kind of things, like in the partnership, being able to understand and communicate those things and grow from those things. That's also so important in the communication. It's the nonverbal pieces as well too, the tone, the direction. When we meet, one of the instances when we meet is I am black and white a lot of the times, and if I'm a move, go kind of person, how that makes you feel when we are in a meeting or something, and that can make you feel rushed. But it's all about communication. And the important piece of that is that you communicate that feeling to me, and I can then communicate that back to you, and we both can learn and grow from that situation.
Yeah. No, it's so true, because if you don't say something, if you're thinking something, I'm not going to be able to read your mind, and vice versa. So you always want to make sure that you're sharing that. And that brings up another problem that I think a lot of people may run into today, is that you're not always going to be right in front of the other person. So you may not be able to, like, for example, right now, I'm not sitting next to you, so I can't read your body language. You may be on a phone call, for example, or even a video call. You won't get the same amount of output from that person as you would if you were sitting next to them or standing next to them. So the tonality that you're speaking when you're on the phone is going to be even more important than the words that you're saying, but it limits that body language. So, always working on trying to improve. And I know for me, my tonality, I've been told a lot that I have a very monotone type of style that I communicate in. So I'm always trying to improve on that, but picking up on other people's tonality. And sometimes you may not even know that you may be speaking down to someone and you don't realize it. If you're just in a habit of talking a certain way, or maybe you're in a mood, but you don't really fully realize it. And when you're speaking to someone, you may be intimidating them, but you don't know. So self-awareness and getting to other person's perspective is so important to constantly improve and find those areas.
Have you ever listened to Zig Ziglar?
I think I have one time, but it was it was a very long time ago.
Yeah, so very interesting, and I know he's a big advocate in the world of sales, a big advocate for tonality, cadence, delivery, dynamics, that kind of stuff. So, and he is from, I believe he's originally right around from here. I think it's Lancaster, South Carolina, really? So near Charlotte, and then closer to Georgia. Then ultimately, I think he ended up in Dallas. But either way, he's got the country boy kind of tone, and it's like we're talking like 50s, 60s kind of country boy. So it's it's a whole new world listening to him. It doesn't have to worry about the tonality for sure. All right, so we've got character, we've got perspective, comparable skills. It doesn't feel like that was the right word that you used.
I think I may have said complementary.
Complementary. There it is. That's much better. It makes much more sense. Complementary. All right. Complementary skills and communication. And is there anything else? I mean, those are four massive pieces when you're looking for a partner that, hey, if you have these in you, you're going to be likely to find them in somebody else, first of all. But is there anything else that stands out to you, Thomas, that would make a great partner?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things that we haven't spoken about. And also, I'll just point this out. I think it depends on what type of partnership, because if you're talking about a business or a marriage versus maybe you're a physician, you're looking for a property management company, you may not spend as much time with that property management company, and there's a whole team there as well. So it's harder to get the whole feel of it. But I would say in general, especially in like a business partnership or a marriage, you're always going to want to look at the core values that each person has and kind of how they operate and live their life. In other words, their virtues and for example, integrity could be one of those, which this kind of overlaps with character. But I think it's important to bring up because in a marriage, if you're getting married to someone and your core values don't align, there can definitely be friction in the future if you don't discuss those things.
Mm-hmm. Just figuring out, talking about this scenario of what type of partnership are we talking about? And I think the business marriage kind of aspect of it do correlate with each other. And if we're looking at, in this perspective, say a business partnership, you're mentioning other types of partnerships, maybe strategic partnerships, smaller joint venture per deal kind of partnership. And I am thinking like long-term ideas with long-term people. And we've talked about that a lot too. So in this regard, this is the type of person that I would like to partner with when it comes to my business, my finances, my family. And these principles are exactly type of person that I want to be and the person that I want to work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think one question we didn't bring up is, do you like the person? Do you like being around them? Could you see yourself, would you be friends with this person? I think that's a super important question. Mm-hmm. Is this person going to be fun? Because if you're going to have a long-term relationship, you don't want it to be dreadful to be around them, even if they have the skills and maybe they have good character, but they're not going to be fun, then maybe it's not the best fit.
Right. So that's the would you have a drink with them test? Would you have a cup of coffee with them test?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it reminds me of I don't remember who it was, but he did this similar test that you were explaining. Zig Ziglar did with the golf course. When he's interviewing or hiring someone new, he would take them to a restaurant and purposely tell the waiter aside to mess up their order and get their order wrong, and then watch their reaction and see how they respond. And depending on how they respond, he'd be able to determine if he'd like to hire this person or not. If there's someone who gets flustered and gets really upset and gets angry and yells at the waiter, then it's probably not someone that he wanted to hire. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was an interesting way of putting to the test interviewing. It's kind of a subtle way of doing it. You don't really realize you're being tested, but it goes back to how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So very, very interesting here. The character perspective, complementary skills, communication, those being like the four things, some things to discuss, obviously the core values, which would lay into those principles. And then the would you have a drink with them test, or maybe even the mess up your order test. What other kind of, I guess, attributes would help you see if that person would make a good partner or not? Well, what about maybe their history or their relationships, who they learn from, or who are their mentors?
Yeah, absolutely. Their experiences, their past history, of course. If you're going to form a relationship with someone, you want to know, has this person worked with other people like me before? Do they have other friends? Like, what is their, let me ask for some of their previous clients and see what they have to say, feedback on this relationship. I think those are all super important. And in some scenarios, it may be something where you really don't know too much about their history, so it's hard to uncover that sort of thing. But if you do have that available, for example, if it's, let's just say, a contractor or a property management company, you want to ask them some of those questions as far as how many properties are you managing right now? How long have you been in business? All those types of things to figure out if they're actually a reputable company that you want to work with. And
if it's a partner in a business relationship, I mean, how would you feel if I said, Thomas, before we entered into agreement, I was like, well, I got to do a background check and a credit check. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with that because I know I don't have anything that I'm hiding, and I'm, open book and transparent and all that. I'd actually be
Right.
happy to share references, previous people that I've worked with, and I know that they'd be happy to share that they would highly, highly recommend. So yeah, I think that is one great way to um, learn a little bit more about someone is kind of digging through their history and asking for some of their past um, relationships, maybe employers, for example, if you're hiring or working
Mhm.
with business partnership.
All right. Yeah. So even those are the type of questions that could hash out issues ahead of time. And in the world, we call it in the sales world, we call it objections, right? We want
Mm-hmm.
to know the objections in the beginning of the process. And in this scenario, when you're working with somebody who's not 100% honest with you all the time, you'll see these little things will pop up. And, I'm thinking like background information, credit check. I'm thinking, well, uh, in this day and age, I want to protect myself. I want to keep my information private. But in the same regard, for the right person, the right process, I have, just like you, have no issue in any of that stuff. And as soon as an issue pops up, then it's like turning, you gave that scenario where you have another person with a flashlight the same way. When something pops up, the lights come on. And then you want to start, okay, what's this? What's this? And it really hashes out any issues that may be there. And it could even hash out further issues of maybe it's not a background or a credit issue. Maybe it's a communication issue.
Yeah.
So just these types of questions to kind of throw in there in in the process of getting to know somebody with regards to partnership.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a couple other things too is seeing how well they receive feedback. Are they open minded? What is their response when you give them feedback? That's another test you can run on people is just give them some critical feedback. Ask them, hey, can I be direct with you and share something and see how they respond. If they're open minded to taking it and are they growth minded? Are they someone who's continually trying to improve and get better? If they are, they'll probably be someone who will gladly welcome feedback and they actually
Hmm.
want to get that sort of thing. And if they're not, they'll probably kind of recoil and almost get defensive in a scenario like that.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Um, I think that's a great list of things to have in mind when considering partnerships. I just want to push back on it as when I started the conversation earlier, Thomas, is like these are the things that I need to make sure that I do to attract the right person that I want to partner with. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, and actually, I was just going to mention that is that you have to become a good enough person so that you can then attract the right partner into your life.
Yep. And you mentioned that I think in your I'll put you on the spot here, Thomas, in the search for finding your significant other. And
Mm.
you have an idea of who that person is, but you have a better idea that who you need to be in order to attract that specific person. Is that correct?
Yeah, yep. Instead of asking, I think there's something along, and I actually borrowed this from Jordan Peterson, but he said something along the lines of instead of asking the question, how do I find the love of my life? You should ask, how do I turn myself into the perfect date? And then if you can answer that question, you should have no problem finding the love of your life or
Yep.
your soulmate.
Yep. This idea, again, working on ourselves to make sure that we are the partner that we would want to have. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Now, what would be some of the benefits of having a partnership, Thomas? I mean, generally speaking, let's keep it in regards to general business partnership,
Yeah.
whether it's owning businesses or investing in real estate. Obviously, there's the complementary skills we talked about,
Yep.
but what are some big advantages of having a partnership?
Well, we did mention a few of them. The one of which you just mentioned with the skills, but seeing the blind spots, I think that's huge. Also, if
Perspective.
you're,
Yep.
yeah, the perspective. Also, if you're partnering with someone, you're not adding, you're multiplying. because that person also has a network that you can then tap into, and your partner that you've yourself can start using your network as well. So you have that. That's a huge benefit, growing your sphere of influence through each other's network. I know there's a lot of other benefits, but I'm kind of drawing a blank here. Maybe I'll bounce the question back to you. What do you think some of the benefits when you join in a business partnership with someone else?
Man, the personal growth, when you find the right person, like I feel we have the relationship, Thomas, that personal growth, how I am improving, the rate I'm improving. So it's not only about the output of the company or the partnership itself, but myself as a person. Since we've started working together, and I've told you this repeatedly, I've become a better father, a better husband, a better brother, a better son, a better friend, a better person overall. And that's through the partnership, because you are an amazing person and you pushing me to be a better person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about partnership.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful that I'm able to partner with you, because I can say the same as well. Everything since I've met you have improved, especially learning a lot of skills, my communication, and go on and on of all those sorts of things. Another thing that I thought of a benefit when you partner with someone is that you're now a team with that person, so you're no longer alone. Which, if you're going down the path of entrepreneurship, for a lot of people, it can be very lonely. But if you have a partner, that can help significantly with that feeling where you're just all by yourself. When in reality, now you have someone who's going through the hard times with you, so you're not 100% by yourself.
Awesome. And at the same time, offering accountability too. Like
That's
when
right.
we set goals, and bounce things off each other, and then we make commitments, then we have somebody to hold us accountable. And even before we were business partners, Thomas, and we were partners in personal development, in our growth with each other, and having that phone call every single night, is just like, you might think about it, like, wow, what are we going to talk about every single night? But how much did we grow having that ability to connect with each other on a regular basis?
Yeah, it was very, very helpful in that growth, the accountability factor, having that, and also just having fun too. I think that
Right.
I know I mentioned that before, but if you're by yourself, then it's very difficult to. I mean, you can have fun by yourself, but it's a lot more fun with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go long and far, go together.
Yep, absolutely. Anything else? The personal development, the personal growth, I think, is still outshines everything. And it's crazy because that has not. I mean, it seems like it has nothing to do with the output of the business itself, not directly.
It has everything.
Obviously. Yeah, but when you think about a partnership, we're splitting this, we're doing that, in the regards of the things, right? The tangible things. How does the business perform? How can I better the business? But it just comes back to it. You're right. It 100% has everything to do with it, and it's remarkable when you find the right partnership that you grow as a person.
Yeah, absolutely, and it teaches you to learn to work with others too, which is, I mean, you need to learn that skill, because the better you get at working with other people, the more you'll be able to advance yourself and everyone that you work with, which is extremely rewarding.
Yep. So those are some massive benefits. And on top of that, these are what produce the tangible benefits of the partnership, in multiplying output and, amplifying the time put forward, if that makes sense. And now you've got two people as opposed to one. You've got two minds as opposed to one. So that's where the tangible results come from. And was that a dog?
Yeah.
I thought you were just really excited about what I just said. You started
No,
barking.
that's our dog, Remy.
Okay. So those are the tangible pieces of it. What are the downfalls of a partnership, Thomas?
Well, in a business partnership, the most obvious one is that you're now having to share part of the profit of the company. That's obviously the most obvious one, I guess I could say. Other downfalls is that sometimes partnerships don't work out, and this is in business and marriages. But I think there's always a positive to the negative. So if something doesn't work out, you're always going to grow and learn from that experience. So it may have that negative, but in the end, I think it's always going to have the positive
I think the
overall.
same with sharing profit. I mean, the mastermind of the two people should produce more profit and in there, in effect, produce more to share anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bad things there are sharing profit. Sometimes they don't work out. What else? I mean, I can't think of anything else. And that just comes back down to the people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't reach an agreement, there can be, it can feel like it's almost better to be by yourself, because now you're almost having to fight to figure out, well, you want to do this and I want to do this, and we don't see eye to eye. So yeah, I can see some difficulties there, but I think overall it has a positive effect being in a partnership versus not being in a partnership. And I think also too, there's different scenarios. And like you said, it depends. It comes back to who is that person, what kind of partnership is it?
Yeah. And I'm just kind of pushing this back again to what kind of partnership and what is it for? And I just want to relate this to my experience, our experience in the real estate world. And there are going to be similarities between this and, I mean, the physicians listen to this, maybe, they may have partners already owning their own practices. And they have to have partnerships doing the work they do. So there's people they like working with, there's people they don't. And a lot of that stuff will apply similarly in real estate. And it's coming down to the people. It's the people and then the product, right? It's the basis of human nature when it comes down to it. You've got to be a good person to attract good people. When you're a good person, you'll be around good people, and that's the kind of relationships that you want to build and grow into a partnership. I would say don't rush things. If you don't know somebody, I wouldn't, get into a scenario that would be a long-term scenario with them without doing the small things to build into something like that. Do the small things for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months to really to build that foundation to see who that person is. Because it sounds like to me, I haven't talked about this here for a little bit, Thomas, and really the personal development track that we're on it's about the person. And we don't have this crystal ball to where we can see who somebody is right away. Some of us have a better read called intuition than others, but even those times we may get it wrong. So don't rush into things. Take these steps. Be comfortable getting uncomfortable, talking about uncomfortable things, because that's going to uncover things that are you're going to be in a relationship. It's going to be similar to marriage, and you're going to have to talk about stuff like this. So take your time, get uncomfortable, being uncomfortable, and be the person that you want as a partner.
Yeah.
I think
I think that's the most important piece right there, is what you mentioned. And working to have a successful partnership, I think it's also important. We touched on the communication, but clarifying responsibilities and roles and making sure that everyone's on the same page at all times. I think that's super, super crucial if you want to have a successful partnership.